My name's Danny.
And I'm Rachel.
And we are
Moving Sidewalks.
We like to travel, do fun things, and lately we've been on some awesome adventures, with the latest one being Death Valley National Park. And the reason why we wanted to talk about it today is because I think we both collectively agree it is by far the most underrated national park in America.
We had real low expectations, and it exceeded every single one.
So let's kick it off right there with our top 5 things to do inside of Death Valley National Park. Number 5.
Number 5, I would say, is Badwater Basin and Devil's Golf Course.
We're going to combine those into one activity because they were really close together, right?
So Badwater Basin is really cool. You kind of park your car out on the main road and you walk out. How far would you say that walk was?
A mile at least.
It gets hella windy, but you get out there and there's just these salt flats that crystallize and make these really beautiful patterns. And there's a giant cliff on the other side of the highway where you can actually see how far below sea level you are.
Did you know that this was the lowest point in North America?
Yes.
You knew that?
Yes.
Okay, well, I just found that out now. I think I knew Death Valley was the lowest points maybe in the U.S., but I didn't realize that this particular location that we were, like, that was the lowest point in North America, which is pretty cool. The patterns that the salt flats make is so sick. I mean, bring your camera, incredible pictures that you'll be able to take.
Little square rectangles.
Octagons. Hexagons.
Not hexagons. Shapes.
They make a really sick pattern. I think it actually makes for such an incredible photo op. The mountains in the background, if you're lucky enough, and there's snow on the mountains, the white of the snow caps with the white of the salt and the sick patterns and almost like the mud texture that's going around it and through it is pretty insane. So definitely in the top 5, but probably sitting there at number 5, right?
Bring your windbreaker. It gets hella windy the further out you walk.
Got so windy, which was nuts.
It can get a little painful windy. So definitely have a windbreaker and some warm layers, because if you're not there in the dead of summer, it can get really windy. There's also no shade cover. So that's another important point. Keep a hat and some sunscreen in the car.
Yeah, I'd say. And let's swing it to the Devil's Golf Course, because I'd say that was right down the block and also had a very similar landscape.
It was kind of cool, though. Devil's Golf Course, I think it got its name because I don't think anybody except the devil could play golf there. Isn't that what they said? Yeah,
I mean, it's what? Just like a bunch of insanely sharp, crystallized rock formations. So the whole thing is just this pointy and spiky salt dune. I don't know what you want to call it.
There's signs on it that say to be careful where you're walking, because if you fall, you will bleed all over. And also, it depends on what time of day you go. We didn't actually get to experience this, but the rangers told us that depending on the temperature, you can actually put your ear to the ground and hear the salts crackling, them crystallizing in the ground.
Awesome.
But we didn't get to experience that, unfortunately.
Yeah, pretty sick place though, just all around, and because of it being so easily able to see both, because they're so shortly close together, definitely a must go to go check that out. All right, number 4 of things to do and see inside of Death Valley National Park is Zabriskie Point. We went for sunset, and I can't recommend it enough. It makes for an unbelievable photo op and just experience to be able to watch the sun go down there. I'm sure sunrise is probably another very similar experience, but the view is just breathtaking. Anything that you would add to Zabriskie?
It just kind of overlooks these really beautiful canyon formations, and you can kind of watch the whole landscape change color as the sun is setting. It does get crowded, so if you want a good seat, get there early.
Totally. I think we'll also talk about this with Artist Palette, but the colors that you get to see inside of Death Valley National Park are absolutely incredible, and I think Zabriskie was a great example of that. I think it's just like the irons or the minerals that are inside of the rocks, or maybe it's just the rocks themselves. They give off different colors. So you're just staring, and at one point you're seeing these turquoise blues and these purples and these pinks just in all the rocks across. And I think Zabriskie had that. And also just like the layers. It's a lot of sedimentary rock, and I think you get to see just like all the different geological layers, because some of the hills are just kind of tilted to the side, where now you're like almost looking at if you chop the rock and you're staring at the inside of the rock, that's what you look at. What do you call that? I don't know.
We need Benji.
Yeah, we do. Number 3.
Dante's Point. Dante's Point was one of the first stops we made actually in the park for sunset, and it is just gorgeous. It's kind of overlooking the whole Death Valley, the actual valley part, and it's just so beautiful out there. You can kind of walk all the way out, and even if there's a lot of people, I would say go past the parking lot, walk all the way down to the little hillside, and you can kind of get a nice private sunset view.
Yeah, Dante's view, you can really get like those 360 angles on both sides, which makes it really nice. I think the way the sun and the sun got caught inside the hills of Dante's Point made for one of the most unique settings I've ever seen in my entire life. I also think that when you really get to see the salt flats from that level, you get to see the different layers and textures on the floor, which made for a really cool experience. And then also because there are many points where you get to have like a really strong vista, I guess you could say, it made for another like awesome photo opportunity to take pictures there.
We love vistas.
We love vistas.
I would also say for that, you were kind of doing some photography stuff, so I had a few moments to just sit by myself, and there's so many different patterns to see in that valley, and I felt like every time I turned around and looked back, I could see a different shape and pattern. It was just so beautiful and so breathtaking. Important to know, fun tip, the sun is setting behind the mountain, so make sure to go before the actual time of sunset.
Good call.
Because otherwise the sun is going to set behind the mountains and you're going to kind of miss some of those fun shapes and colors.
Yeah, another fun tip, it's a lot colder in the mountains. It may be 70 degrees when you're at the base of the mountain or just like walking the flats in Death Valley, and then it gets to like 40 degrees when you get up there to Dante's Point inside the mountains, especially at sunset. So when the sun then goes behind the cloud, it gets cold. So get prepared for that.
Bring some blankets, bring some beanies,
Totally.
Blankets, get cozy.
Great spot to post up for a little bit, watch the sunset as well.
Good
So
date spot.
great date spot. I highly recommend sunrise sunset Dante's Point for sure. Number 2.
Artist Palette.
So we were mentioning it a little bit before, but Artist Palette, incredibly unique experience. I know you loved Artist Palette so much. So what's Artist Palette?
So Artist Palette, I think, was probably my one spot that I was looking forward to most. Just be aware, the photos you see on Instagram are not that vivid. Keep that in mind. It's not
the photos
that
on Instagram
in
are
real life.
right. They're overly saturated on
Yes.
Instagram. But
it's
life,
still
yeah.
beautiful. So you kind of do a drive through Artist Palette. Pro tip, do not get out at the fake Artist Palette. When you start this drive, there's going to be a part where everybody is getting out of their car to walk up, and you're going to walk up a mountain. It's going to be steep. It's going to be windy. And you're going to get there and you're going to be like, is this it? It's not it. So Danny unfortunately lost his new hat.
Listen, the winds
peace.
were 97,000 miles per hour that day, and
Someone lost their baby. No. But honestly, there was a child, and like the parents were holding them so tight because they would have blown off the mountain.
On a windy day in Death Valley, this is not a place where you want to bring your kids.
Especially if they're small.
Yeah, if they were small, they're getting whipped by the wind. I genuinely feared for a lot of these families that were walking around in that area.
Yeah.
But super cool, right? The drive all the way around this place is, one, it's cool because if you're someone who wants to visit Death Valley, you're not into hiking, you don't want to walk too much. One, there's lots to do in Death Valley that is accessible for someone who's not trying to go and use too much motion. And I think Artist Palette is a great example of that because you could drive the entire thing and there's many stop-off points along the way where you could take a peek and see all of this, like the beautiful landscape, specifically the insane colors of the mountains.
Yeah, so you drive past the fake Artist Palette and then you get to the real Artist Palette, and it is so beautiful. I mean, there's blues, greens, pinks, purples, like you didn't think rocks could be that color, and it's all the minerals.
Yeah, they're different rocks that happen
They
to
like oxidize.
Yes.
And they change colors. So we parked and we got out, and we were pretty beat that day, but I think I forced you to go hike among the rocks, and it literally felt like we were on another planet.
That's the thing too, is like you get to get out and actually go explore, where I think the pictures make it seem like you're viewing from a distance, but when you get there, you could get out of the car and you could actually go up into the jungle gym that was Artist Palette, and you get to see, I agree completely, it was like another planet. You're like, when you're walking through these rocks that are like bright turquoise, turquoise and pink. You're like, this could be Jupiter. Like, I don't like, where are we right now?
It was Jupiter.
Pretty
we went
insane.
there. Next episode, Jupiter. But it was, and you can't see anything else when you're in the rocks. So it's just so beautiful, all these different colors, and most people just stop in the parking lot and hang out there and take pictures from afar. And so when you're kind of wandering in the rocks, it really feels like you have the whole park to yourself, and it's just so, it was so gorgeous.
Gorgeous. It's truly a painting, so definitely enjoy and bring the camera for that as well. Number one, the Mesquite Sand Dunes. And the reason why I loved the sand dunes so much, I mean, I could go on forever, but we happened to go to the sand dunes for sunrise. We got to the dunes at around 5:30, I'd say, maybe 5:45, maybe even earlier, but I'd highly recommend getting there early. This is by far the number one place to go for sunrise. When the sun just starts to peek over the hill, you get to witness the beauty, which is these sand dunes, because a very special thing happens, which is one, the dunes and the colors and the things that you see will constantly change as the sun comes up over the horizon. So what starts off as like this bright, almost like a neon blue and a bright purple, then all of a sudden starts to change and becomes golden. The sand starts to reflect the sun, and then you get all these insane colors. I'll put so many pictures right here, all these videos of how special this was, to be able to witness this during sunrise, and I'm sure sunset's very similar as well. To be able to experience this as things are changing is incredibly cool. I by far think this was the number one activity for me personally of this trip, and then again being able to bring a camera and take all the different angles and textures and views that made up the sand dunes. I mean, breathtaking and incredible.
Another thing to add is we got really lucky because the week before there was blizzards in Death Valley. So the mountains, the Black Mountains in the background, that's what they're called, the Black Mountains, have snow caps on them. So just the difference in the smooth sand with like these dark mountains with snow caps just made for such beautiful photos. They didn't even look real, honestly. It looked like you photoshopped them,
I agree.
but we didn't.
I agree.
They were so beautiful.
Yeah, we were lucky. I cannot even begin to put into words. You'll see it in the pictures, but the juxtaposition of a golden sand dune that looks like it was taken from the Sahara, and then the white snow-capped mountains. There's nothing like that. I mean, there is just nothing like it. I've never seen anything like that before in my life, and to be there in person was incredible, and then to be able to capture it in the camera, I mean, it made it so
gorgeous.
special. And then the sand dunes are another fun playground. Again, it's just like you're going up there, you're climbing the sand. It's hard to walk, you're struggling a little bit, but that's kind of what makes it fun. And then every time you shift location, you notice something different. You're like, what if we go over here? What if we go over there? What if we just go behind this? And every step of the way was just amazing.
What's awesome about the sand dunes is when the winds blow, it reshapes the entire thing. So you can go visit this every single day, and it's going to look different every single day. Like how many other places in the world can you say, oh, I can go back tomorrow and it's going to look like a completely different landscape?
I agree. And no picture will be the same.
Exactly.
I took 1,000 pictures and it felt like it was a snowflake, and that every single one was unique. Even if I'm taking it of the same thing, the constant changing, I think, made it so incredibly special.
The sand literally turns purple as the sun rises. It's so gorgeous.
Unbelievable. Yeah, number one by far. Awesome. Yeah, I think that's our top 5 things to do and see inside Death Valley National Park. Yeah, and just one general trip about national parks in general is that, and I think we said it before, but it's they are always bigger than you expect. So to be able to drive to where you want to go at all times means that you can't do everything. So some things are hours apart, so you have to pick and choose what you're going to do for a given day.
That's why we picked what we picked.
Yeah, and it makes it challenging, but I have to say that these were overwhelmingly like the top activities to do. I think we nailed it with our choices. I wouldn't have done it any other way. I thought that this was one of the best trips that we've been on, and by far one of the most underrated national parks in the United States.
Agreed.
Sweet. Peace.
Cheers.